Hello there, I'm Karim Zachary and you're watching All 24 News, World News program live from the capital Algiers. Next up are the top stories. The occupation keeps breaking the truce, hitting Gaza with more airstrikes. 50 more bodies have been recovered as the occupation blocks reporters and investigators from getting in. Also in our news, in Western Sahara, people are back on the streets demanding independence. The Polisario says no to any deal that limits self-determination and calls for real talks. Later on in Sudan, the RSF is accused of killing hundreds in El Fasher and Kordofan. Heavy clashes rage on as the UN chief condemns the bloodshed and foreign interference. And in Russia, 2 airports near Moscow shut down after Ukrainian drone strike. Zelensky's working on Trump-backed ceasefire plan, while the US president urges Putin to stop the war. The full reports are straight ahead. Welcome back to the program. It's great to have you with us tonight. First up in our news, the Israeli occupation keeps breaking the ceasefire in Gaza, with more strikes hitting areas packed with displaced families. Palestinian media say Israeli warplanes carried out several raids east of Khan Younis on Monday and dropped bombs near the Shujaiya junction, right by camps sheltering people who've already lost everything. Similarly, Palestinian media say 2 people were killed in a Zionist airstrike on Khan Younis in southern Gaza. Reports add that an occupation drone hit the nearby town of Abasan al-Kibira, killing 2 Palestinians and leaving several others injured. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza says rescue teams have recovered 472 bodies from under the rubble, while 93 more people were killed in ongoing Zionist attacks despite the ceasefire. In the past 2 days alone, hospitals received the bodies of 8 martyrs and 13 wounded, bringing the overall toll since October 7, 2023 to more than 68,500 killed and over 170,000 injured. The ministry also confirmed receiving 50 more bodies released by occupation forces under the latest exchange deal, the 7th batch so far, saying many showed clear signs of abuse and torture. And with the fragile ceasefire now holding in Gaza, residents are finally trying to grasp the scale of what's left behind. Many are clutching to the keys of their homes reduced to rubble. Others still don't know if their houses are even standing, with entire areas of the strip still off limits. A story by Yasid Rikzi.
In Gaza, house keys have become relics of a past life, symbols of security, belonging, and the hope of return. When Amal and her family fled the north under heavy missile fire, they carried their house keys, believing the truce would allow them to go back. But when they returned, their home was gone, reduced to rubble, its door and walls erased.
There were missile strikes and fire belts, so we had to leave the house. We took the keys with us, thinking we would come back. But when the truce was declared and we returned, we found nothing, no house, not even a door.
We took our keys, believing we would return home to Gaza. But when we came back, there was no house. It had been destroyed, completely destroyed. No homes, nothing left, no life anymore.
Amal's story is far from unique. Across the strip, displaced families still cling to their keys, tokens of homes that no longer exist. While Amal and Suhail now know their houses have been destroyed, others, like Muhammad, remain in painful uncertainty. Her neighborhood, Zaytun, is now among the areas Gazans are forbidden to enter.
We don't know what happened to our homes. Were they destroyed? Are they still standing? No one is allowed to return to Zaytun. We want to go back. We still have the key, but we don't know what will happen to us. What will happen to us?
Yet despite the devastation, the people of Gaza refuse to surrender their connection to the land. Suhail Abdurrahman says it will always be their homeland. They lived and grew up here, and leaving Palestine or even Gaza is unthinkable. They're like fish, he says. If you take them out of the water, they just die.
This will always be our land, our homeland. We lived here, we grew up here. I was born in the Shati camp and lived in Jabalia. How could I leave Palestine or even the Gaza Strip? I can't. We are like fish. If you take us out of the water, we die.
Today, the keys they hold may no longer open doors, but they unlock memories and carry the hope that one day, amid the ruins, life in Gaza will be rebuilt, stone by stone.
And on a related note, the Euromed Human Rights Monitor says Israel is still blocking international journalists and investigators from entering Gaza. A move, it says, aims to cover up evidence of genocide. In a statement, the group said the ban includes the UN Commission of Inquiry, the ICC team, and forensic experts, warning that this obstruction hampers criminal investigations and delays efforts to identify victims and return their bodies to their families.
Israel continues in a deliberate and institutionalized manner to implement a systematic policy aimed at erasing physical evidence of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity committed over the past 2 years in the Gaza Strip. This policy is carried out through a series of field and administrative measures, including the prevention of international journalists and independent investigation committees from entering Gaza in an attempt to obstruct any criminal investigation or field documentation that could establish the truth and confirm Israel's legal responsibility. Israel's actions to erase evidence of genocide include continuing to prevent the entry of the UN-mandated Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, the investigation team of the International Criminal Court, as well as fact-finding missions and other international mechanisms specialized in investigating grave crimes.
In the occupied West Bank, occupation forces shot and killed a Palestinian near the Meitar checkpoint south of Al-Khalil, while 6 others were wounded in raids on the Amari refugee camp in El-Bira and the town of Kabatia near Jenin. Local sources say troops opened fire on civilians during the Kabatia raid, leaving 2 young men in serious condition. At dawn, Zionist forces detained 15 former prisoners from the Akba Jabir camp in Ariha, many of them recently released after storming the area and assaulting them. The Palestinian Prisoners Club says at least 40 Palestinians, including a child and several ex-detainees, were arrested in overnight raids across the West Bank, with reports of abuse and property damage. To another just cause now. In Western Sahara, crowds took to the streets on Monday calling for a fair international settlement that guarantees the right to freedom, self-determination and independence. According to the Sahrawi news agency, protesters rejected any attempts to bypass international legitimacy and reaffirmed their commitment to UN resolutions supporting their cause. Waving national flags and chanting for independence, demonstrators voiced their rejection of any deal that undermines decolonization or the free will of the Sahrawi people. In the same context, the Polisario Front has once again rejected any plan that limits the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination or imposes a solution against their will. As the UN Security Council holds talks on the MINURSO mission, the front said it won't take part in any negotiations that seek to legitimize Morocco's occupation or set terms that ignore the principle of self-determination.
And whose territory remains.
The Polisario Front reaffirms strongly and unequivocally that it will not take part in any political process or negotiations based on proposals, regardless of their source, that aim to legitimize Morocco's unlawful military occupation of Western Sahara or to deprive the Sahrawi people of their inalienable, non-negotiable and imprescriptible right to self-determination and sovereignty over their homeland.
The Polisario Front also says peace can't be built by rewarding colonial expansion, but by holding a fair and transparent self-determination referendum free from outside interference. Let's take a listen.
The Polisario Front reaffirms that lasting peace in the region cannot be achieved by rewarding expansionism or the seizure of land by force, but only through respect for international law and the inalienable right of peoples to self-determination. The Polisario Front urges the UN Security Council to create conditions for serious, time-bound and unconditional negotiations between the Polisario Front and Morocco, talks that must be held in good faith under UN auspices to reach a just and lasting political solution, guaranteeing the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara.
Algeria's parliament has reaffirmed its support for the Sahrawi and Palestinian causes. Speaking at a symposium titled Media and Communication from Serving the Revolution to Current Challenges, Parliament Speaker Ibrahim Boughali said Algeria will always stand as a free platform defending just causes and the right of all people seeking freedom and independence.
We renew our pledge to continue serving the nation with honest words, a free voice, and responsible opinions. We remain a free platform for just and legitimate causes of people aspiring to freedom and dignity, foremost among them the Palestinian people and the people of Western Sahara, in loyalty to the principles of our glorious revolution until all its noble goals are achieved.
Still with Algeria-related news, President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboune has announced a partial reshuffle of several walis or governors and delegate walis or governors to improve local administration and strengthen territorial governance. The changes include the dismissal of Mustafa Gorish from Mila province and the transfers of Fodil Douifi from Laghouat to Adrar province and Mohammed bin Malik from Batna to Laghouat, Houriya Agoun from Galma to Bouira, and Samir Shabani from Oran to Galma. The move aims to boost administrative efficiency across Algeria. Algeria says it has a leading agricultural power in the region with major investments planned in the southern provinces over the coming years. The goal is to ensure food security and Algeria's growing population of 65 million. The details with Karim Asfawi now.
Algeria's agricultural sector is on the verge of a new era. Various experts from across Algeria met on Monday in Algiers at the Abdelatif Rahal International Conference Center with a shared and clear ambition, modernizing Algeria's agricultural sector. From smart sensors to connected management systems and well-researched scientific programs, the focus of the conference was on integrating new technologies to boost efficiency, productivity, and transparency.
We are here today to prepare for the launch of a true agricultural revolution based on science, technology, and a firm commitment. Our ambition is clear and our objectives are well defined. Over the next 5 years, we aim to achieve a yield of 35 to 40 quintals per hectare in cereal cultivation. This is not a distant dream, but an achievable goal thanks to the widespread use of improved high-yield seeds, the adoption of precision agriculture and artificial intelligence technologies, and the improvement of soil fertility through well-researched scientific programs.
The agricultural sector, like all economic sectors, needs modernization, which could begin with digitization of all old and new data available in order to have the calculation models, forecasts, or simulations of scenarios.
Meanwhile, the exploitation of the vast Algerian Sahara, considered a key reservoir for agricultural development, remains among the top priorities, as it can strengthen the country's food sovereignty for Algeria's future population of 65 million.
The future of agriculture in Algeria lies in the south. There are 1 million hectares that will be exploited based on a study carried out by the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Water Resources on the capacity of these regions.
between technological innovation and the ambition for food sovereignty and self-sufficiency. Algeria's agricultural sector is paving the way toward modernization. With technology, research, and strategic development at its core, the country is poised to secure its food sovereignty and build a prosperous future for generations to come.
Moving on to other regional news, in Morocco this time, the Federation of the Democratic Left has rejected a draft law on parliamentary or pre-parliamentary elections, saying it aims to intimidate citizens and silence those exposing electoral corruption. The party said the proposal fails to address the deep-rooted corruption seen in past votes, calling for real reforms and the release of those arrested during the Gen Z protests. Meanwhile, victims of the Hoceima earthquake plan to protest outside Parliament in Rabat next Monday. They say thousands of families are still living in flimsy plastic tents 2 years after the quake, without even the basics to survive. Elsewhere in Africa, the UN mission in Libya is urging Libyans to take part in shaping their country's future through what it calls a structured dialogue. It's inviting citizens to join an online discussion with Deputy UN Envoy Stefani Kouri to highlight key priorities and ideas that could help steer Libya towards stability and democracy.
Your resilience inspires us at UNSMIL. But we know that true peace won't just be signed on a piece of paper. It must be built on your reality. You may recall the political roadmap that I announced 2 months ago. One important component is what we call a structured dialogue. It is a cornerstone of our political roadmap. We held prior consultations and visits to different parts of Libya, during which we started gathering ideas on priority issues. But we want to keep hearing from you, from the broader Libyan society.
Elsewhere, a military source says heavy fighting is underway between the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces in North Kordofan. Local reports say the RSF has taken control of the Dam Haj Ahmed area, though clashes are still ongoing. Meanwhile, Sudan's Emergency Lawyers Association accuses the RSF of committing massacres against civilians in the city of Bara and is calling for urgent international intervention. So there you have it. El Fasher is indeed in turmoil. Months of fierce fighting between the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces have left the city under RSF control. Civilians are trapped, hospitals have been hit, and humanitarian aid can barely get through. Zara Ferjani reports now.
Al Fasher, the capital of Sudan's Darfur region, has fallen into chaos. For months, the city has been a battlefield between the Sudanese army and its allies on one side and the rapid support forces on the other. Military sources report that the Sudanese army withdrew from its 6th Infantry Division headquarters, while the RSF claimed full control of the city following fierce battles across multiple fronts. On Sunday morning, the RSF shelled the hospital, killing a doctor and injuring 3 others. Meanwhile, humanitarian aid struggles to reach those in desperate needs.
The fall of Al-Fasher does not mean squandering Darfur's future to violent groups or corruption. We demand the protection of civilians, disclosure of the displaced, and an independent investigation into the violations and massacres carried out by the militia. Every inch will return to its rightful owners.
The Sudan Doctors Network and local resistance committees report mass killings and ethnic-targeted attacks. Thousands remained trapped, facing hunger, lack of medical care, and constant threat of violence.
As fighters advance inside Al-Fasher and block escape routes, hundreds of thousands of civilians are trapped and terrified. They face bombardment, starvation, and no access to healthcare or safety. Immediate action is needed to halt attacks on civilians and hospitals.
The United Nations has called for safe corridors to deliver aid, warning that without intervention, the risk of large-scale ethnic violence and atrocities will grow daily.
It's high time for the international community to tell clearly to all countries that are interfering in this war and that are providing weapons to the parties to the war to stop doing that. Because the level of suffering that we are witnessing in Sudan is unbearable, and it is clear that we have not only a Sudanese problem with an army and the rapid support forces fighting each other, we have more and more an external interference that undermines the possibility to a ceasefire and to a political solution of the problem.
As Al-Fashir endures another day under RSF control, thousands of civilians remain at risk. Humanitarian aid struggles to reach them, and calls for international intervention grow louder. The city's fate may well shape the next chapter in Sudan's long and bloody conflict.
In the same context and in later statements, Al-Burhan vowed justice for the souls of the martyrs and pledged to reclaim RSF-held areas. Let's take a listen.
The Sudanese people will prevail, and the Sudanese armed forces will prevail too. Their steadfastness is with the people. They fight alongside them as sons of Sudan, beginning with the joint forces, and everyone is mobilized, fighting alongside the armed forces. We say the people will win, and that the battle will be decided in favor of the Sudanese people. Therefore, we assure our children everywhere that we are determined to be victorious for all our martyrs and determined to avenge on what happened in Al-Fashir. The crimes committed and those still being committed now in Al-Fashir were committed before in other parts of Sudan, in full view and hearing of the world, in violation of Security Council resolutions and all international norms, yet no one speaks up or holds anyone accountable.
And in another recent development, Turkey's Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya reported that 4 buildings were destroyed as a consequence of a 6.1 magnitude earthquake that struck the Balıkesir province in the Marmara region earlier on Monday. The tremor occurred at 10:48 p.m. local time and was also felt in the country's largest city, Istanbul. A series of aftershocks was also reported. The mayor of Sindirgi, Serkan Sak, clarified that 4 or 5 buildings collapsed and that emergency services could not reach some areas. Until now, no casualties have been reported. Moving on to other topical news story, Russian authorities say air defenses repelled multiple overnight drone attacks on Moscow, forcing 2 of the capital's airports to shut down. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said 28 drones were shut down in just 5 hours, while Domodedovo and Zhukovsky airports were closed for safety. The Defense Ministry added that 350 Ukrainian drones were intercepted in the past 24 hours alone, and Russian forces struck a military airfield and weapons transport sites in the Donbas region. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country and its allies have agreed to draft a ceasefire plan within 10 days based on the U.S. president's proposal to halt the war along the current front lines.
We in Ukraine have decided to work with our allies on some quick measures, such as a ceasefire plan, within the next week or 10 days to pressure Russia into holding talks. Kyiv is asking the U.S. administration not only for Tomahawk missiles but also for similar weapons that do not require lengthy training.
In the same context, U.S. President Donald Trump has urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine instead of showing off his nuclear arsenal. Asked about Moscow's test of a nuclear cruise missile, Trump said the U.S. doesn't need to prove its strength.
They know we have a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shores. So, I mean, it doesn't have to go 8,000 miles. And they're not playing games with us. We're not playing games with them either. We test missiles all the time, but, you know, we do have a submarine, a nuclear submarine. We don't need to go 8,000 miles. And I don't think it's an appropriate thing for Putin to be saying either, by the way. He ought to get the war ended. A war that should have taken 1 week is now in its soon 4th year. That's what he ought to do instead of testing missiles.
Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says Brazil and the U.S. will start immediate talks to resolve their tariff dispute after meeting with President Donald Trump in Malaysia. Lula posted on X that the meeting was excellent, describing it as frank and constructive, with both sides agreeing to hold urgent talks between their economic teams.
Eu vou dizer para vocês, Mauro,
It was very good. And I would like to say to all of you that Moro, Foreign Affairs Minister, he's the negotiator, Moro Masroorza, and the Finance Minister Haddad. They will be part of the negotiating table. They know that if we rely on Trump and me, we will reach a deal with the US. It's very important that we sit around the negotiating table.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called for stronger global governance and multilateral cooperation to tackle rising global crises. Speaking at the Lanting Forum in Beijing, Wang said China firmly stands for a multipolar world, stressing that multilateralism remains the cornerstone of the international order and the key to peace and development. And now it's time to catch up on other news stories making headlines in the news brief, this time with Selma Rasseb.
The Constitutional Council confirmed President Paula Biya 93 re-elected for an 8th term with 53.66% of the vote, despite opposition claims of fraud. The decision sparked tensions and protests across the country. Meanwhile, in Douala, 4 people were killed in clashes between opposition protesters and security forces after demonstrators defied a ban on gatherings, accusing authorities of vote rigging. The army reported 5 soldiers and 25 militants killed in heavy border clashes with fighters trying to cross from Afghanistan into Kuram and North Waziristan. The incident underscores rising cross-border militancy and ongoing security challenges along the frontier. Caracas accused the United States of trying to provoke war in the Caribbean after the arrival of the USS Bravely near its coast. Venezuela condemned U.S. military drills with Trinidad and Tobago as a dangerous provocation and claimed to have detained CIA-linked mercenaries. Tensions with Washington remain high amid sanctions and espionage accusations. President Trump said a final TikTok deal could be signed by Thursday after China's Xi Jinping gave initial approval. The agreement would transfer TikTok's U.S. operations from ByteDance to American ownership, a key step in the ongoing U.S.-China tech rivalry.
And that's the end of our news for tonight. To catch up on any part you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms. On behalf of all 24 News team, I'm Zachary signing off. Thank you for watching and goodbye.